What up, simps? I don't say this very often, but I think I broke Zinnia. Well, maybe I didn't break him, but I definitely found a really powerful interaction that not many people have realized, or at least are not utilizing. Now, there is a problem with Zinnia. From my experience playing Riku for the past 15 years, I can tell Zinnia is going to be very mana hungry, needing to spend 2 additional mana on each of our creatures in order to get any value from our commander is quite the tax, and being in Jeskai, we don't have access to Green's ramp that Riku really relies on. I can tell from looking at the precon that Zinnia is going to struggle to generate a lot of value because of this fact. But don't worry, I have discovered a solution that will allow us to cast our creatures with Offspring without having to pay any extra mana at all. Did you guys know that similarly to Kicker, Offspring is an additional cost to cast, and therefore can be reduced by cost reducers? Now, there aren't many cost reducers out there for creatures, at least not in Jeskai, but that is not a problem at all for artifacts. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can artifact creatures have offspring? Robots lack the sexual organs necessary to reproduce. And, oh my god, Only Lands, you, only build artifact decks. You're so fucking lame. Shut up. I know I have a problem, but at least I'm not a dirty green player. I'm building for function here, and trust me when I say this deck functions. So, we are going to stack a bunch of cost reducers so we can cast our artifact creatures for a huge discount while paying for the offspring cost as well. Since Zinnia easily allows us to make copies of our creatures, we can copy our own cost reducing creatures and double up on their discount, meaning one single cost reducer can pay for all of our future offspring costs. I also see a lot of people using blink strategies with Zinnia, and while Offspring does synergize well with ETBs, which Blink does as well, Blink and Offspring don't actually synergize well together. You can't pay for the Offspring again when you blink a creature because you can only pay for the Offspring cost when you cast the creature. So I don't really love Blink. However, I did find a card that works much better in this scenario. This card, Release to the Wind, allows us to exile a creature and then cast it again for free. And since we are casting the card, we only have to pay for the offspring in order to double up on that value once again. It's also just really flexible, being able to protect one of your creatures from a removal spell or a board wipe, or you can use it on an opponent's creature that's going to attack you for lethal. This card just does a lot in the deck, and it can generate a ton of value, and once again, helps alleviate some of that mana hungriness of the commander. Panharmonicon effects, on the other hand, go extremely hard with Zinnia. Even though you pay for Offspring as part of the casting cost, the trigger it causes is actually an ETB trigger. You can tell because it says when that creature enters, meaning it's an ability that you're giving to the creature. When it enters, it triggers. So Panharmonicon effects are going to be doing double duty for us, both doubling up on the Offspring ETB trigger, as well as any ETB the creature we are casting already has. Panharmonicons also work as token doublers in this sense for us, and in my opinion provide a lot more value, not to mention they are much easier on the old wallet. As an example, let's say we resolve a Thought Monitor with Offspring and Panharmonicon in play. Offspring will double trigger, giving us 2 1/1 copies of the Thought Monitor, then each of these copies are going to double trigger, giving us 12 cards. That is 6 times the value we would normally get off of one Thought Monitor. Now, imagine this scenario with a Mer Battlesphere. We are going to make 3 copies of Mer Battlesphere and 24 1/1 Mer tokens. That is 27 bodies on board for 9 mana, and with 26 of them having base power of 1, that is easily enough for Zinnia to be a one-shot kill. And remember, we play a ton of cost reducers. And when we double up on those cost reducers, it could be a very real scenario to pay much less than 9 mana to put 27 bodies on board. If we have either of our damage dealers as well, which are our main win con in this deck, And those are also being doubled by Offspring, and then doubled by Panharmonicon, and their own triggers are being doubled by Panharmonicon. We can deal over 100 direct damage to all of our opponents immediately. Now, of course, this is a scenario where everything is going right for us, but still, you can see how insane Panharmonicon effects are in this list. Silver Quill Lecture is also an amazing piece of value. If you demonstrate a spell that you have paid the Offspring cost for, since demonstrate copies on the stack, both the copy you give to your opponents and the copy you get will produce Offspring when they ETB. I also think this is a creature that is often better not to Offspring. If you Offspring your Lecturer and then double demonstrate an Offspring creature, sure, you end up with 6 copies, but you have to give 4 out to your opponents, which is a worse ratio than just demonstrating an Offspring creature once, which is a 4-to-2 ratio. Maybe you will want to Offspring it sometimes because you don't have to demonstrate twice unless you think it's worth it for you. Like, if you have Panharmonicon in play and you want to just win by offspringing a Molten Gatekeeper and then double demonstrate so that you end up with 3 copies on the stack that will each resolve and double offspring, giving you 9 copies of the Molten Gatekeeper, and then each one double triggers from seeing the others enter with Panharmonicon, so you get 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8 plus 10 plus 12 plus 14 plus 16 plus 18 equals 70 damage to everyone outright. Jesus Christ. Yeah, guys, you're gonna need to bust out your old calculators from high school math classes for this deck. It gets absolutely insane how much damage and how big the numbers get in this list. Besides our burn creatures, we have Brutaclad, which can turn all of our tokens into either more burn creatures or giant constructs from Urza's Saga, Urza himself, or Simulacrum Synthesizer, or any other busted token we might create through the Offspring mechanic. It also gives all our tokens haste, which is really nice. As you guys know, I consider haste to be the most important keyword for any creature-based deck in Commander, since it speeds your game plan up by 3 whole turns since you have 3 opponents. We also have Cybermen Patrol, which if we Offspring this guy, it will basically just give all our artifact creatures unblockable. Like, Afflict 6 is no joke. People will end up taking more damage from blocking than not blocking, and if we can get even more copies, then it's just literally impossible for our opponents to block any of our artifact creatures effectively. This is, of course, a token deck at its core, so we have a bunch more additional token makers. Loyal Apprentice and Psy pump out tons of Thopters. Shorekai is a great value engine and token maker. Illustrious Wanderglyph just goes absolutely nuts. If we can get a few copies out, then they will quad Anthem our board while pumping out 8 tokens a turn cycle, and that's with only 2 of them, and this deck is definitely capable of making more. Speaking of ways to make more tokens, Oltec Matterweaver, Worldwaker Helm, and Kaith make tons of tokens on their own and are capable of copying our most powerful Offspring tokens as well. These are definitely some of the most powerful cards in the deck, in my opinion, just being able to be really flexible and create whatever kind of token we need, whether it's more draw, more damage, more cost reduction, they can do anything. Oltec Matterweaver, especially if we can combine it with a Liquid Metal Torque or Encroaching Mycosynth, we can also just start copying himself with his own abilities and start to generate exponential, value worth of tokens each time we cast a creature. Yeah, it's crazy. The math in this deck is just absolutely insane. You just make so many tokens. It is going to be difficult to keep track. In addition to our cost reducers, we have a bunch of mana rocks, a Reaver Cleaver, which on Zinnia just generates tons of treasures, Solemn Simulacrum, Smothering Tithe, and Urza as our ramp sources. For card draw, we have some passive draw over time cards, as well as some burst draw on ETB that synergizes with our Panharmonicons. I also included a Stoneforge Mystic, which can tutor up Skull Clamp, the Reality Chip, or our boots, and very often multiple or all of these at once. We have a bit of recursion to get back our key artifacts, a few counterspells, a Clever Concealment to phase out our board in response to board wipes, a Bronze Guardian that we can copy to give all of our artifact 2 instances of Ward 2, making it basically impossible for single target removal to be effective against us. For interaction, we have some Exile stuff, a Chaos Warp because it's amazing, Bottle Cap Blast because we are an artifact token deck, Blast Act as a board wipe, and Alibu, which is capable of dispensing giant chunks of damage in this deck to either kill creatures or just smack people in the face while digging through our deck and setting up our draws to make sure we find the exact spells we need to close out the game. And that's going to do it for this deck tech, guys. I think this one is pretty unique for Zinnia, but truly unlocks the potential for ridiculous stuff and insane board states. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the list, and remember to like and subscribe to my OnlyLands for the spiciest deck content on the internet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace!